Lord, for our worship team. We pray, Lord, that as we worship, that you would fill our hearts with joy and peace, and that you would be honored and glorified throughout this entire day. And we pray these things in your name. Amen.
Last Thursday, when Alice asked for volunteers to work with worship, I was celebrating that my son was home from hospital. He had gone through a rough time, and I was very glad to do worship. And then before we got the songs picked out, then my husband went into hospital. And why would I mention that when I'm leading worship? In Taiwan, crazy things are going on, and in the Ukraine, and in Israel, and it seems like the whole southeastern part of the United States is kind of wrecked from all the hurricanes. And inside the hearts of probably each of you here, there's stuff that's tough. But all of those places, and our hearts in all of the places I mentioned, God is also working wonderful things. His goodness is ever present. And we are here to celebrate his goodness to us, and also to remind ourselves and each other that no matter how big a thing is that's weighing on your heart, God gives you whatever you need to meet that, but also enough left over to love the people around you and to infuse them with courage. So, the goodness of God.
I love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend. I have lived in the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God. Oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I've carried the burden for too long on my own. I wasn't created to bear it alone. I hear your invitation to let it all go, and I see it now. I'm laying it down, and I know that I need you. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, 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 you saw my condition, had a plan from the start. Your Son for redemption, the price for my heart. I don't have a context for that kind of love. I don't understand, I can't comprehend. All I know is I need you. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, again and again and again and again. Oh, 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 my heart has been in your sights long before my first breath, running into your arms is running to life from death. And I feel this rush deep in my chest. Your mercy is calling out. Just as I am, you pull me in, and I know I need you now. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart found a surgeon, my soul found a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, again and again and again and again. Oh, 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 again and again.
Lord, we love you. We run into your arms. Thank you for running to us. Thank you that you are a good, good Father. You are good. And we are so happy to be here. Lord, I thank you for your beautiful people that are in this place, your Spirit, which is here with us. I pray, Lord, that you would grow your kingdom through the Christian schools here in New Hampshire, and that you would equip us further today as your servants in that end. In Jesus' name, amen.
Hi, I'm Rick Duba. I'm head of school at Laconia Christian Academy, and I want to welcome you to our annual Granite State Christian School Association Educators Conference. So last night we had an opportunity to hear from the Social Institute for about 45 minutes to an hour, and I'll say this maybe a little bit later too. We felt, those of us that were here and those that were online felt like they were fed through a fire hose. So, and we're still feeling that way looking back on it. And you might feel that way too. So I want to encourage you as we go through this. There are breakout sessions which will be helpful, right? Because you're going to be able to get some information, reflect on that information. And I'm sure Lauren, our facilitator, won't mind. This will be the one time you can be in a meeting like this where you should have your phone out, because she's going to put stuff on the screen, and you can take a photo of the QR codes, and you can take photos of whatever else is on the screen, so that when you get out of here, and you're like, what did she say about that? You'll have an opportunity to reflect on it. So I know in this crowd there's a bunch of you that are reading Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, right? How many have either started it, finished it, in the middle of it? Yeah, so obviously there's issues with social media in the world today, especially with our young people. I had a question for Lauren at the end of the conference last night that I did not ask her while we were live, because I didn't want to throw her under the bus. I wasn't sure how she was going to respond. So I know if you're a Jonathan Haidt fan, then you're maybe thinking like this is going to be all about we're going to shut it down, I guess, which is what I would hope the world could come to, but it's not going to. They're going to take an approach that says it's not just about shutting down. It can be both and, right? There are places where it's going to be appropriate to shut it off and shut it down, and then at some point in time we're going to have to teach our kids how to manage it, and they're going to spend she'll spend a lot of time today talking about the management piece. And you're going to leave with tools. We've been involved with the Social Institute for a little over a year now. We've done some work with our students and with our parents and with our staff, and we have a lot of tools that are available to us, and Lauren's going to give those to you as well. So what the Social Institute does is they partner with students, parents, and educators across the country, basically to help students, parents, and educators learn how to be in this world in a way that is healthy. Kids are healthy themselves, they're healthy with one another, parents are able to engage with their students and their children in ways that help them learn how to manage their lives in the new world that we're in better than they have perhaps in the past. A little bit about Lauren. She has over a decade of service as a teacher and coach. Actually, I found out last night, she's going to tell you all this, but my job is to tell you first, and then she'll tell you again. And she'll do a much better job with her bio than I will, because she is she. So anyway, she brings firsthand experience advising and mentoring students to make positive changes. Throughout her time working with students, she designed and facilitated leadership programming, focusing on guiding students to impact their peers positively. Lauren's passionate about empowering students and school communities to navigate their social worlds. So I'm really excited about this, because I thought last night was great, and today's going to be even better, because we've got more time to reflect on the information that she's going to share. So I don't know where Lauren is. Oh, there she is. All right. Welcome back.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. I'm really excited to be here today. I'll be here with you all day today. So as things come up, I'm happy to answer questions, chat. I'll open up my slides here in a moment, but just to sort of set the stage, I'm going to give you a lot of information. I'll send you away with resources too. I always want you to have takeaways and things that you can apply now. I am going to also try to make this as interactive as possible as well. So there will be times where we'll pose questions and you'll huddle with the people around you. I might ask for some volunteers. So just prepare yourselves. And I, again, am a former coach. So if you don't volunteer, you're going to get voluntold. So buckle up and let me open up my screen here and then I'll get us going. Hardest part of the day is putting in your password. There we go. All right. So here we are. I'll be with you again throughout the day today. The first thing that we'll talk about today is we're going to dive right into the fun topic of artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence for academic excellence, how to guide students to support your own goals. So show of hands, when you start to hear about AI, before we even dive in, how many people feel very apprehensive about what's about to happen in your schools? Yeah. All right. Hands down. How many people are stoked about AI? Okay, all right. Yep, I do see some hands that are both. So, and this is another theme that you're going to hear a lot today. So all of the topics we're going to talk about, it's a double-edged sword, right? There are ways that these can go wrong and that your students and ourselves, right, we can get in trouble with these tools. There's also ways that these tools can be used really effectively and for good in your communities. And so you'll hear that theme quite a bit today, and we're going to dig into that here. You already heard a little bit about my background, but again, here I am, former coach and educator, spent just about 11 years working with college-age students. I always feel like I saw a lot of what you all see with just a little bit of older students. And I myself grew up in the age, have some memories pre-internet, and also remember getting my first AOL Instant Messenger account and being very excited to get home and then get kicked off when my mom took a phone call, and then wait for her to stop talking to her friends and get back on again, right? And so many of you are laughing because you have that experience as well, and things have certainly changed quite a bit in the last however many years since that time. But always have a passion for helping students and educators to really be able to empower good social interaction. And while I'm your presenter today, and I shared this with the families last night too, all of our content at the Social Institute is co-created with students. And so these students that you see here are members of our Student Ambassador Program. When we work with schools, they can send students to meet virtually with one another monthly to talk about things that they're seeing in this space. They also will take a look at what we're working on, and we want to make sure that everything that we're doing is hyper-relevant to students. We all know, I'm sure, that students feel like the subject matter experts in this area. You've probably had students come in and ask you about a new app. I had a parent come up to me last night who's also a teacher who told me that her students will come up and be like, did you see this new app? It does all of these things. And as soon as she says no, they roll their eyes and walk away, right? So we know that students feel like they're in the know. So we want to make sure we keep their voice at the forefront of this work. And that'll be another theme that you hear today. Again, I come from the world of athletics. We're also going to play some games throughout the day. Some will be a little competitive. Some will just be sort of truth or false questions, things like that. But so you'll see in a few of our agendas, we'll have a game time. For this particular presentation this morning, we're going to talk about understanding students and where they are in this space. We'll talk about how we empower students with AI, and then being a role model. So again, we always have the idea that students, it's really helpful if they can see the good use from you so that they can model that behavior off of what you're doing, right? So that's what we'll get into today. And so to start, we'll kick off with a quick question that takes us to our game of this or that. So I mentioned earlier that many of us feel different ways about AI. Some of us will have more knowledge, some will have used it, some will have not. So the first question to get all on the same page, though, are calculators considered AI? So, hands up if you think calculators are AI. All right, I see some cautious hands raising. Okay, hands up if you don't think that they are. All right, a few more hands. Hands up if you're unsure. I knew I wasn't getting all the hands. All right, so the answer here is in fact no. So if you said no, you were correct. If you were unsure, you can count in that bucket too if you'd like. Let's get on the same page though, right? Before we even dig in, what is AI? So you can read this here as well, but artificial intelligence, the theory and development of computer systems able to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence, such as visual perception, speech recognition, decision making, and translation between languages. And so you might be thinking, well, calculators do a lot of very complicated things, right? The things that they are lacking, though, is the capacity for learning, adaptation, and decision-making that are characteristic of AI systems. So when we think about that, you are likely using AI already every day. I'm curious if we can get a couple people to shout out, what do you think that you're already using? Maybe you even used it this morning that is powered with AI. What's that? Grammarly, absolutely, yeah. ChatGPT, absolutely. Alexa, yep. As soon as I hear that, I'm waiting for a voice to come down from above. Spotify, yep. Everything with the algorithms, everything giving you suggestions. Anybody use their map app to get here? Yep, that's using AI as well, right? So we're already using this and might not be realizing it. ChatGPT, that's where we really start to get into the very intentional use. But even when we're thinking about our emails and things that are automatically getting sent to spam, if you have a Roomba, the Roomba is learning patterns. So a lot of different things are already doing this that we use on a daily basis. So if you're like me, you might feel like ChatGPT in particular came out of nowhere and really just took a hold with no notice. It started actually in November 2022. It took off in record-breaking fashion. It picked up 1 million users in a very short space of time. And in just 5 days, it surpassed 1 million. And so you can see here that the engagement ebbed and flowed a little bit, but it's really not going away. And so this is something like all of the different social media technology that we've seen emerge over our careers. This is also something that is not disappearing. And instead, I'm sure you've all seen more and more AI coming out. And so I will be taking you to our next question here. Have you used ChatGPT? So let's get a show of hands as well. Hands up if you have used ChatGPT. All right. All right, hands up if you have not. All right, I'm curious to hear, and again, we can just get a couple people to shout out nice and loud. If you've used it, what have you used it for? We get a couple people. English literature themes, say more. In a book. Okay, so pulling out the summary content. Awesome, great. Was there a hand over here? Creating games. Game names, very cool. All right, thank you. Finances? How to budget, okay, great, yeah. Making a meal plan, very nice. Oh, we had 2 votes on that, okay, yep. Planning a training program for a basketball team. Making up a musical about Julius Caesar. I'm loving how specific we are getting. Yeah. Making multiple choice tests, very nice. Over here. Spanish vocab quiz. Proving your content? Yeah, okay, improving it. Yes. Yes. Anybody take an email and say, make this kind? Yeah, saw some hands come up. Okay, all right, let's switch gears. All right, yeah, ChatGPT can be very kind. One warning. Has anybody seen any of the research that's come out about the word delving into topics? So ChatGPT loves to delve. And so if you're noticing in your emails that you're asking or whatever you're asking for, you might notice that ChatGPT will start prompting, we're going to delve deeper into this topic. We're going to delve into this. And they've actually done studies to show when they're looking for plagiarism, actually, the usage rate of delve in student papers is a really good indication that maybe something it needs to be looked in a little bit more closely. All right, so for those of you that don't use it, put those hands back up. All right, let me get a couple people. Why have you not used it? Too mainstream, I like it. I I shared about it for the first time. Okay, so just not knowing. Yeah, perfect. Shout out to our parent presentation attendee. Anybody else? Yes. Okay, nothing is going to be as specific to me as me. Okay, thank you. Lack of familiarity and trust. Yeah, and can you tell me a little bit more about the trust piece? Yeah, the plagiarism piece. Yeah, absolutely. Lack of time. Yeah. Yeah, brain overload. Yeah, if you didn't hear brain overload and learned so much tech during COVID that not sure we're ready to bite into this yet. Yes.
For the same reason that I actually dial the phone, I don't want to become dependent on it.
Okay.
When my phone is dead and I need to call my husband, I still actually know his number.
Yeah.
And I think with ChatGPT, I could get lazy.
Sure. So if you didn't hear in the back, not wanting to depend on it, right? So tell me your name again. I'm sorry. Kathy was saying that she still memorizes phone numbers and dials the numbers so that she doesn't have that dependency. Same idea with ChatGPT. I think that's a real concern as well. Yes. Yeah, so using it, but also afraid of where the technology is taking the information that you're feeding it. That's absolutely a concern I hear quite a bit as well on this privacy piece. So thank you. This right here is like very much so a really good indication of the intersection of what we're seeing in education and what we can see here. I'll give you some further information about this if this will shift. Here we go. So just like we just talked about, you'll see on this screen here, regardless of your usage, we've also found that educators are very split on this topic in schools. And so, in fact, some big schools in the US have banned AI and ChatGPT. It's hard to ban because they go home and still use it, right? And so that's a conversation that we can continue to have about policies as well as we go through the day today. But you can see here, 47% of educators surveyed say that AI would have a negative or very negative impact on teaching and learning in the next 5 years. We have this thought over here that I think AI will push making education more relevant to the individual student and the knowledge and skill they will need to transact with other life circumstances. And then we have, again, on the other side, I believe students already have too many readily available resources, such as answers to tests, essays, reports, etc. AI just makes it even easier for students to gain answers without gaining knowledge, right? And so these are real concerns here. And like I mentioned at the outset, double-edged sword. And I'm just shifting so that this doesn't open up a different screen on me. Here we go. We're going to have one more question here. So we've already sort of touched on this a little bit, but AI's impact on student learning. Do you believe that AI is an enabler or a detractor? So again, we've talked about some of the concerns. Now I'm going to ask you to pick a side. So hands up if you think that AI is going to enable good things. Okay. Hands down. Hands up if you think it's a detractor. It's taking away. Okay, so more hands on that one if you didn't look around the room. And so again, very interesting, right? Because I think the usage, we had more people using it, but then we have more people that are concerned about it, right? And so we can already feel the tension that we probably are carrying on this topic as well. And so what you're going to see throughout today, is the pros and cons to everything, especially AI, social media, technology. That's what we do here at the Social Institute. We want to help you identify both sides and then figure out how to lean into the positive with your students, because the fact of the matter is they're going to use this, right? And whether you use it or not, it's important that we're familiar with it and we can encourage the best use for it. So that brings us to understanding our students a little bit more and what they're already doing with this. So we know it's top of mind. There's definitely some fear about it, fear of where students will take this. And there are some cases where we've been seeing students with plagiarism, not really knowing where that line is, right? And so that creates some more work for you as educators to try to parse that out when the content is coming through. But we did ask 5th through 8th grade students if they could use ChatGPT, how would they want to use it to help with their assignments? And what we found here, you can see 14% said that they would want it to help them pick a topic for a paper. We had 39% say that they would want it to double check their homework, so they would do their assignment first and then put it in there and see how they did to get that learning. 14% to research topics that you're interested in. And then 33%, to explain hard topics in an easier way. So we can see here already 4 different cases that don't feel so bad, right? Where students can actually get that quick real-time feedback. And we've had some educators as well talk about different ways that they have used ChatGPT or other AI tools to help them to get that feedback before the students even hand in that final assignment to learn how to self-evaluate a little bit. So on that note, here are some ways that students are using ChatGPT positively. So we'll go through a few of these, and then I want to actually have a pause and have you talk to some people about a question here. But we can see here that some are using ChatGPT to help them strengthen their writing skills. So this could be asking ChatGPT for writing prompts and exercises. We had somebody say that they're using this for practice plans, using this to come up with quizzes, right? ChatGPT can be a really good tool to create some questions and content for you as the instructor, but also for your students to go in and say, if Julius Caesar was a musical, what might the first song be? And then they can dig in a little bit more to what that might look like, right, as one example. Generating practice questions, again, those quizzes, thinking about topics that are of interest. I shared with the family presentation last night, but every now and then I decide I really like drawing. And when I was younger, I would go to Google and say, give me drawing prompts, right? And then you would get some random person who would come up with 50 drawing prompts of, a sneaker, and then you would try to draw that. Well, ChatGPT can give you those prompts as well, and with a little bit of feedback, you can actually guide it to different directions. So we've seen students try to enhance their creativity and get some of those prompts as well. Looking a little bit more here, I won't read all of these to you, but I do want to pause and give you about 2 minutes to say, let's huddle with 2 or 3 people around you. Have you heard from your students about using ChatGPT, and have they had any creative uses that felt good and that you were inspired by? So take 2 or 3 minutes, talk to the group around you. If your students have not talked to you about it, then think about what might you like to see if you had to encourage this, what you might like to see. So 2 minutes, go ahead. one more minute, so make sure everybody gets to share 1 more minute. All right, wrap up those final thoughts. All right. So I'm curious to know what are some of the things that came up? What are the creative uses that you've been hearing from your students? Any volunteers share what you chatted about? Or if you went totally left field on the question, that's fine too. Yes. Who's behind ChatGPT? So OpenAI. So it's a company that is creating this and enhancing it, and so it's a tech company. Yes, that is a valid concern. So if you couldn't hear, the concern is that tech companies not being in sync with your values. And so that is really going to determine if, how, and when you use it, right? And so one thing, and this is relates a bit to one of the fears that came up, ways that we can encourage people to understand how to use the tool without giving up that alignment with values, thinking about what we're feeding it, right? And so one thing that we can encourage our students, and we can think about this, we have a couple slides from now, we'll talk more about some things to talk about with our students, but we wouldn't, as educators or students, want to put in personal identifying information, right? And so to my friend over here that writes emails and makes them kinder, or does parent emails with ChatGPT, you wouldn't want to put a student name in, right? And so I've heard from some teachers that might say, a student's having a behavior issue. Well, the student, no matter who they're talking about, they use one name, and it's always Johnny. So Johnny is always getting in trouble on ChatGPT, but that means that there's no clear identifying information, right? And so that's one way to get around making sure that you're not sacrificing your own values or privacy, but being able to use it. So what else did you all talk about, though, on that? How do you get started? Yeah. So if you were to do it. Yeah, let me back up a little bit, and then I'm going to come over here because you've had your hand up for a moment. So ChatGPT, you would go. There's a paid version. You don't need to be doing all that unless you really are into it. But there's a free version. If you Google ChatGPT, it'll bring you to that website. It'll ask you to give your email, and then you just start typing. And so you would just say a prompt like, I'm just going to keep using the Julius Caesar musical because I'm so. I would love to see what results came out of that, but that'll be the afternoon session. But you could say, what is if Julius Caesar was a musical, what would the 5 acts be? And then it will give you this information. Now, another limitation of ChatGPT is that the data set does not go all the way to present day. And so you don't have all of everything past 2022. That continues to be updated, and sometimes that's in the paid version as well. So that's what you would do. You would just go on. It would be similar to a Google search, but it puts together the information in a different way. So that would be one way to start exploring with it. But thank you. I thank you for the reminder to back up on this because we're all coming into this particular topic and that app and site from different perspectives. Over here. Okay, so from over here, they developed an entrepreneur class and had a small business owner come in, and the students didn't necessarily know what they didn't know on the topic. So asking, what were some of the prompts that the students put in?
There were some financial questions, questions about growth, questions about like logo design,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, so use ChatGPT to figure out what questions to even ask to get the most out of that, to find out even how to learn what they didn't know that they didn't know. So that's a wonderful use. Thank you. Yeah.
I think when you're getting into this from a different perspective, I'm an elementary teacher.
Yeah.
So I'm in third grade. This is the first time I've heard of this, so you can tell how knowledgeable my background is. But we were having a great discussion about it. I think one of the things that I'm fearful, even as they get older, is they're losing their inability to have individual thought and their own creativeness within themselves.
Yep.
Higher order thinking skills within themselves. Though as teachers, we're supposed to prompt that for them, but we're letting AI do that instead by giving us the tools given from an AI instead of from our own experiences or knowledge. I just feel like even as a younger teacher of younger children, I don't want them to lose that momentum
Yeah.
of ability. And I don't want to be judgmental to it. I think it's great. We have to grow with the times, and I'm working on that. But that's just what I was thinking. We were discussing that in our group as well.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely valid. And so one of the things, yeah, you're getting applause. You're getting applause. So So one of the things that we talked about a little bit last night with the parent presentation, and we'll get to it in a minute here, is that flip side, right? So, and that's something that I hear quite a bit. I did a presentation for folks up in the Yukon territory, and overwhelmingly, nobody had used ChatGPT, and nobody wanted to in that room. And it was different, right? Because in this one, we're pretty split, but that was the big concern that was coming up there, and they were talking quite a bit about that fear of that independent thought, that autonomy, coming up with the creativity and not having everything get streamlined into one. And so when we were talking with the families last night, one thing to think about, and again, we'll touch on this a little bit more as the day goes on, but how do we onboard, right? How do we onboard our students? And I have a colleague who, when she was thinking about this with her own children, was thinking about also her fear of when they started driving and how we don't just hand keys to kids and let them go, or chaos would ensue, right? We give them driver's ed. We make them go around cones in a parking lot. We hang on to the door and are very stressed about it, right? Yep. And I just found out all the parents in the room, right? But so, and we want to think about ChatGPT, AI, technology in the same way. And if we don't know, we want to be curious so that we can then help guide our students, because if we don't, they're going to use it, and then those concerns will come true, right? And so that's absolutely valid. Yes, over here. Yep. Yes, tools as opposed to becoming a victim. Absolutely, yes.
I just wanted to tag team on that and say my perspective is a little different because I'm a specialist teacher, I'm a music teacher, and I see 10 different grade levels every week.
Yeah.
And like obviously my pre-K 4-year-olds are not going to know what this is, but like my 8th graders, they know exactly what it is and fought me for 3 weeks on whether they should use it or not. And they know as a school like we're not doing it quite yet, or whatever's going to happen is fine. But like they went back and forth with me, and the way that I really drew the line for them was, are you using this to think for you, or are you using it to enhance your original thought that you can't create on your own right now? Like,
Yeah.
because the anxiety and the pressure of getting an assignment done for a music teacher versus their English teacher is completely different.
Yep.
So like it really was about asking where their core idea is coming from.
Yes, I think that is a really great question to be asking. Is this something that you're asking to think for you, or is it? Say that exactly how you said it again. I don't want to paraphrase in a way that is not accurate.
Are you asking them to think it for you, or do you have your original thought
Yes.
before you go and plug it in?
Yes. Do you have your original thought? And I think that's perfect, right? And so one thing that we want to think about here, and then I'll open it back up because these are really, I'm loving the conversation. So something that we want to think about as you're having these conversations, right? And hopefully some of you heard some creative uses in addition to the entrepreneur class of how your students might be using this. But we want to help our students think about how they're striking the balance of using these tools, and in this case, using ChatGPT for assistance and ensuring that they're still developing skills independently, right? So a concern that comes up quite a bit is English and language arts, right? Because you just said it yourself, the pressure to complete an assignment, the pressure to get a paper done, to get that good grade and move on to the next thing is really, really huge for our students, right? And so this is part of that conversation of thinking critically and having your own creative flow first, and then using that as the tool. Just like you would write your first draft, and then you bring it to your peer group to read for you, right? Using it in that same way. Same idea when we're thinking about generating the practice questions. It's not putting the quiz in to get the answers. It's how do we use this to prompt you to be thinking even deeper, right? And with those younger grades, yeah, they might not be going and using this, but one thing that I will say, I shared this story last night as well, but I have a colleague that has a first grader who is not exposed to social media and technology, doesn't have any of their own devices, and one day he came home off the bus and he was saying and doing things that were very offensive, and she turned to her husband and was like, "Did he get that from you?" And he turned to her and said, "No, did he get that from you?" Right? And so they had this debate of like who's exposing their child to whatever this was. Turns out that their son had been sitting next to a 7th grader on the bus who does have a smartphone and was just watching whatever he wanted to watch and not thinking about this like 7-year-old student who was sitting next to him, right? And so even if they don't have access to their own devices, they are still going to see this stuff, right? They might still see somebody using an app. And so that's where starting to think about how do we start having some of these conversations with the younger students as well, or being aware that they may be exposed to it is really important. That same colleague, we were in Vermont doing a conference together, and she got a phone call and she was like, "I have to take this." It was a number she didn't know. Turns out it was her son FaceTiming her from daycare in the summer, and she was like, "How does he know how to FaceTime?" So again, not even his own device, and he was like, "Well, I know your phone number." So again, they know more than we think that they do, and so that's just something to kind of think about with these younger students. One other good use to share before we dig into some of the other side as well. We heard from a student at a school recently that this young girl was experiencing some friendship drama and didn't know where to go and didn't want to talk to the adults. So she actually went to ChatGPT and said what the problem was and got really good advice that she then used and solved her problem, right? So it's another resource that students can use to help in some different creative ways. But again, the concerns that we're talking about are very real. So again, not only the good things, we want to acknowledge the reality of how students can trip up as well, right? And so sometimes they will use AI or a chat bot to write a paper, right? They'll use it to write an essay. They'll use it to complete an assignment. And obviously that is not a good thing. As we have on here, plagiarism is not the vibe that we're going for. They could be thinking that they're just taking some ideas and then not actually changing it. Another thing that you may have heard about, I think it was last summer, but there was a lawyer that got in trouble because they had been using ChatGPT for law research and looked for a case to bring to court. And AI does hallucinate sometimes. And so what that means, if you're unfamiliar with it, is it'll just like take information and start putting it together because it thinks that it's right. And so what these two lawyers did is they brought a case with and it looked real. It looked like it was factual and incited the right way, brought it to a courtroom, and then they started to dig into it because that's what judges and the other opposing counsel does, and it didn't exist. And then they had to keep coming up with reasons to delay to try to cover themselves, and finally it emerged that they had used ChatGPT, didn't check it, and they were essentially laughed out of the courtroom. So when you're thinking about, again, like how you talk to your students, it's not just plagiarism isn't good, but it's also you may be even finding things that are just not true. And if you're not doing the work to do your own writing and research, then you're not going to notice that until things are way too far gone. And this has really long-term implications, right? Other things that we can see here, again, that credible sources, asking it to complete assignments, over-relying it, and not developing that critical thinking and problem-solving skills. So one thing to think about, and I'm going to actually ask you to huddle together again, does your school have a policy about AI? Do you, as a classroom instructor, have a policy about AI? If you do your students know about it? If you don't, what do you think that ought to be, or what would you want that to be for your own classroom? So that's my first question I'm going to ask you. I'm going to give you a couple minutes, again, huddle with the people around you and just think about how you would want to communicate about that.
How's it going? Good, I'm Brienne.
Brienne, Lauren.
Nice to meet you.
You were trying to help before when we were doing this.
Well, I was actually going to hover to say, hey, Andrew, I need to add more complications. And then you guys killed it with getting that on. I tuned in online last night. Everything flowed really well. Thank you. I was going to drive up. I'm the board secretary, but I was like, I'm not picking up really quick because I have so many things to do for tomorrow, but I'm like stuck being admin and listening in. I'm like, wait, there's stuff on the screen I'm missing. Because I had my spreadsheet. Yeah. So then two later, which would have been smart using my tech brain, but.
Or keep it simple, because that's the other half of it too, right? It's like, just let it wash over you, don't feel like you have to divide that attention so much.
I'll watch the playback. I'll catch all the fun things. I'm like, good thing we're recording it. Thank goodness we're using technology. And I was telling Andrew all this screen loaded all.
I was wondering, I was asking him, like, how does this look? And he was like, we got this camera, this camera, this camera. I was like,
This is right. This is a setup.
yeah, that's something else I've never seen before.
Really?
I'm about to call the company and be like, I am only presenting these stages.
Right? This is what we're doing. This is what I want on my
I'm
rider.
going to need
Three screens and then multiple camera angles.
and lighting.
The lighting, and then, I mean, the confidence monitor, we had them done, but you've got your presentation right there, so. But you can get one of those clickers.
I know, that's
on
nice.
upstairs.
That's nice. Then I can really pace.
Dude, I love that. Yeah, then fully interactional while you're talking about tech.
Yeah, look out, this is the beginning.
And then we'll get a hologram, and then it won't actually be you on the stage at all.
Yep.
Plot twist, Lauren's not even here.
Yeah,
Lauren's back.
there is no Lauren. Yeah.
What is Lauren? Lauren's a social construct.
Yes.
That's too philosophical. I had half of a coffee today. I say half of it, but baby water now. Guys, don't do me like that.
Every now and then. Every now and then.
What's your coffee of choice besides coffee and coffee?
You know, I really like oat latte. So I just try to, like, when I'm going around, I like to find different cafes. So I went to the Rebel Stove. So I got a latte this morning. So yeah, it's like good.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Dunkin' July.
I mean, that's just it. Can't go wrong. Well, you can, but I made that gamble.
But it's reliable. Again,
Indeed. And I know what it's going to feel like later. Whereas if you go try somewhere and then you're like super disappointed because you spent like $8, yeah.
that I don't know.
What are you going to do? When in Rome, right? So I was down in somewhere in North Carolina. There's too many places that are cute. I flew into Asheville and drove like 25 minutes for a wedding. And I was with some people downtown Manhattan with like a bear outside and just the cutest thing ever. I had the best cup of coffee. And I'm talking to this kid and I'm like, I'm a New Englander. And I turn the accent on. And he's like, mention like the fall foliage or something last night? Did I hear that out of half of my brain cell? I love that. You're gonna go do a hike or things? You might as well. You're here in October, and the company's paying you. So it's gonna take a hot minute. All right, thank you, Lauren.
All right, bring the conversations back. I want to hear about these policies. Final thoughts? A+ to my first 2 rows here. All right. As you're winding down, I would love to hear if you are thinking about policies for your own classroom, what did you determine is what you would want that to be? Yes, up front.
These guys have an absolutely beautiful thing with red, yellow, green light, so that there are times when you absolutely don't use AI, times when you use stuff with permission, and times when it's open season.
Yes.
And you're just very deliberate. This is a time when it's definitely red. This is an exam. We're doing an exam. We are not using any AI.
Yeah.
But in this other case, where we're trying to come up with ideas for something, it's open season. And I love it because I like the different levels of when you can use it.
Yeah, the permission, the red, yellow, and green, just so everybody heard. So green, you can use AI. Yellow, not as much, right? Red, absolutely not. And that can be a really great way. That's a great system to be able to talk to your students about the appropriate time and the inappropriate time, and helping them to identify that as they move forward in other classes as well. Thank you very much. Who else? Yes.
We were kind of talking about the idea of if plagiarism is going to happen, it's going to happen. And so it's kind of hard to think about going about all these scenarios of how to stop plagiarism, how to stop them using from AI, rather than like teaching them to be good humans and to have good morals to choose the right thing. Yet we do still have to think about the after effect, because AI can change the reading level of a certain text, and
Yep.
it can give you really great ideas, and you can talk to historians that are dead, and like it's really cool stuff, but those are like the okay scenarios. And
Yep.
so how to teach the students to be good humans while interacting with where our world is, that's not going to change.
Yeah. And so that's really, so again, to summarize the debate, right, is making sure that we are taking the time to teach our students to be the good humans, to understand good use, and know also that some of the unethical things will happen, the plagiarism. And so balancing, is that right? A fair summary, balancing getting in front of that and how to prevent those issues while also encouraging them to learn how to make the really good choices, which I think is a really good conversation to be having. Yes? Yep. Yep. Yeah, and that's great. So we're talking about over here. We're talking about actually leaning into it, having students use it, and then report back about what they're seeing, what they're finding. One activity that you can do with students is have them take a piece of writing that they feel really strongly that they did well, right? And that you've said, yep, this is good paper. This is your best writing yet. And then you can ask them to put it into ChatGPT and see what the feedback is, and then have them go through the exercise of defending themselves to the AI, right? Yeah, so there you go. So that can be a way to take that and to have them now we're utilizing this tool to say, what's the feedback, what's the criticism, how do I stand really authentically in my own 2 feet and defend myself against this thing that when I know that I'm right. Yes, go ahead.
I think one of the most important things that we need to lean on is making sure students understand the purpose of an assignment, the real end goal.
Yep. Right.
But the more they understand the purpose and the end of the assignment, the more likely they are to use it properly.
Yeah, I think that's huge as well. So understanding the why of the assignment and then the proper utilization of the tool to help you get there. And if, to summarize again, if the why is you want everybody to stop hounding you about handing in your paper, the tool is going to write the paper for you. If the why is I want to really understand this topic, the tool will help you dig deeper into those questions. Is that a fair summary? Yeah. Sure. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Sure, sure. So again, to summarize, if everybody could hear the question of zooming out on looking at education as a whole and what we're preparing our students for, and whether that be a job market or a changing times or trying to have identical of what we came up in, right? And having that larger conversation. I think when it comes to the tools that we're going to talk about all day today, it's back to I think maybe your colleague had said this as well. It's also thinking about how do we help them to just make good decisions, right? Regardless of what they're faced with, regardless of what the next 10, 15 years looks like, technology is going to continue to change the world around us, right? Education may stay the same. It's been pretty consistent in the structure, right? But what we're preparing our students for, that may change, but we want to make sure at the very zoomed out level that we're helping them to think critically about what is put in front of them so that throughout their life, whatever is presented, they can take that tool and then utilize it in an effective way, right? And so I think that would be my quick thought about that, but I think that there's a lot more to be talked about, especially probably in the breakout sessions. Yeah.
I think also, like growing up, like I think we as a whole have viewed AI in a negative way too. And like everything that's been presented with AI negative, like all the robot movies,
Yep.
like how they literally have killed the entire human race. I mean, like that's like what we see with AI. And then also like with me growing up, like I didn't get a phone until middle school, and that was just a flip phone for emergencies. And then I didn't get the iPhone until I was in high school. It's like
Yeah, and I, again, for the whole room, the debate of whether or not this ultimately is a good thing or bad thing for the world at large. When you start talking about movies, I will never forget seeing Terminator 2 for the first time. Right? That's like stuck in my head, and I do think about that every time I talk about this topic. But I think, again, every time there's new technology, this is part of the conversation too, right? Like, what is that long-term implication, and what's the worst thing that could happen? And that's where we tend to go. And I'm not here to say that, like, I know I can't predict anything, but I do think that the thing that we want to try to do is we want to think about those fears. We want to talk about what could be, but then we also want to take what is and then think about how do we make the most of this, right? Knowing that this is in front of us, it's not going away, and we, right? And so it's that debate, and I think that's not to say don't have that other conversation. I think that's an important conversation to have as you then think about, again, how do we have a red, green, yellow system? How do we have good creative ways for our students to dig into this so we can teach them those good skills, right? Because there are real concerns here. For time's sake, because I want to make sure that there's enough time for the breakout sessions, I'm just going to share a couple more slides here. So I know we've been talking quite a bit already, but our approach at the Social Institute, we want to think about acknowledging the bad side, but also how do we encourage the good side, right? And so when we're thinking about the winning approach, the activities like we talked about to help strengthen writing skills, to debate the chat bot and assert what you think to be right, or to take feedback if you actually do find that there's something really compelling that you're being told about your writing, right? We can think about those generating the practice questions, exploring personal interests, entering into the different creative projects and gathering ideas. We had some students tell us that they had a birthday party and they had a sleepover and they were trying to think of fun games to play. ChatGPT helped them to come up with some entertaining things there too, right? So there are those good uses, but there's always that other side of the coin here as well, where we want to acknowledge, right? Another thing to think about with fact checking, does everybody remember when Wikipedia came out? Yeah. Right? And so, but what we learned about Wikipedia is, like, that might be a fun place to start, right? That might be a fun place where you might start looking up information, but then we teach our students how to find credible sources and what .edu means on a site versus something else, right? And how to vet that out. So it's very similar to how we're going to teach our students looking up that information and guiding those interests. I'm going to go to a few resources and activities here at the end. So if we were to think about how can we be a role model with this, right? Very much so, a lot of what we'll talk about today too is how do we engage with this as the educators to then be able to be a positive example of good use cases for our students, right? So what I have here is a challenge to level up your AI knowledge. We want to think about I'm going to skip this one, actually. We're going to come over here to this creative thought partner. So whether you're a ChatGPT believer or not, your challenge is going to be to dive into the platform and use it to complete one of the following exercises. So you can think about planning a dream lesson, okay? So some of us are already shared at the beginning that we've used this to come up with some quiz questions. We have musicals being written. We can think, I will drop it after this session, but then I'll latch on to something else. So good luck at the beginning of the next session. But we can think, all right, is there something that you really wanted to teach, but you just haven't been able to delve into perhaps, right? Put that prompt in and see what comes back. Maybe that's something that you want to use. And then you can share with your students that you did that if you decide to use it. Hey, this is something that I used. I put in this prompt. I had to be a subject matter expert, though, to get this prompt written really well, right? So I already have to come in with knowledge. Here's what I did. Here's an activity we're going to do now. And that's something that you can also do when you're studying. Be a subject matter expert and then challenge yourself with another activity, right? So you can show them that kind of good use. You can also brainstorm icebreakers or discussion questions. I promise I will not do an icebreaker here today. I know that's one way to make everybody in a conference hide, but you could do that with your classroom if that was something that you were wanted to do. And again, on here, somebody already mentioned this, but write an email that you don't want to write, and then put it into ChatGPT and ask it to change the tone. You could, for fun, ask it to make it a little less nice, and then have it come back to be even more nice and see all the ranges so you can feel better about where you started, and then get a little help at the end. Challenge number 2 here, behind the feed. So if you're like, you know what, not really interested, don't want to go on there, don't want to put anything in, don't like it, we can take another approach. So we mentioned at the beginning, AI is already a part of so much of what you're already using. If you're watching Netflix and you're being suggested content, that's happening, right? If you're listening to Spotify and you go to that DJ, this is being used. So what you can do is actually dive into what's going on with these feeds and start to try to understand not each, this would take a long time, but you can start to understand some of these different tools and apps that you might already be using. And again, once you have this and you've done this a little bit yourself, you could also have your students do this. If TikTok is a really big deal with your students, you can have them do an exercise and really dig into, why are you seeing this content? What does TikTok know about you? What have you shared? What have you liked? How is it interpreting that? And that can also help your students to be critical thinkers about the content they're consuming and not passive consumers of that content. Extra credit if you go back and use ChatGPT to ask questions about this, to start that research, but again, always then taking that and comparing it to other credible sources. And you'll see this quite a bit today as well, so I won't dive too deep into it here, but again, we really do view these things as life skills for the modern day. We know that social media, technology, AI, it's here, your students are using it. We want you to know and feel equipped by the end of today to have more conversations with them, to have takeaways, to have activities where you can be teaching these life skills so that they can, regardless of what 10, 15 years looks like, they're good at interpreting, making good decisions, and then using tools that are coming towards them. All right, a few more resources here. So this one I'm going to share for now, so definitely take your phone out. This is The Huddle. This is a newsletter. Definitely encourage you to check this out. We put this out a few times a month. Also great to share with your families if they are interested in this as well. But this is where we will keep you informed of different apps, different trends that are coming out, different AI. I mean, there's so much changing in this space. So this will definitely be a good one to take a look at and share out as well. And so wanted to share that one. I'm seeing a couple phones still up, so before I go to the next, we have a couple minutes here before I go to the next slide. One of the things that I shared about this last night, one of the more benign things that we alerted people to, there's definitely things that are scary that happen, but last Christmas season, a lot of young girls started asking for skincare products for the holidays, like 8-year-olds. And a lot of families were like, what is going on? Because a kid had never asked for a face lotion before as a stocking stuffer. And that's because on social media, young girls were being marketed to for skincare products and beauty products. And so we had an article that we put out about that too. So again, as you're seeing things happen, we want to help you to stay informed and then give you ideas on how to have the conversation or encourage your families to have the conversation about what your students are consuming and how they can think critically about that. This is another, it's a school playbook on AI, so this has a little bit more information you can download. I would encourage you to take a scan of this as well. This will give you more insight into how schools are reacting, different strategies to huddle up and talk to your students about this topic. So I'll give you a moment to scan this one. And then we are at 10:30, and so I understand that now you'll have the opportunity to go to breakout rooms and talk with your colleagues more about these topics. I have some discussion questions that can guide your breakout conversations, so if you want to grab a picture of this to take with you wherever you're going to have those conversations as well. These can be great conversations to have today. For colleagues that aren't here, this can also be a really a good place to start having some of these conversations with folks that couldn't join us today. So I'll leave that up here as well. And I thank you for being here for this first presentation. Looking forward to our next one, and I will pass the mic off.
Thank you. Great. Wonderful. It's on. Okay, it's on. We have 4 tables for snacks. They're all the same. All right, so when you go to one of those 4 tables, just don't try to be too long. You can go down both sides of the aisle.